All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in once again to the Clover Street Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Kepics, and a rare treat today. We're actually going to be interviewing my father, Nick Kepics, who's come all the way to see us all the way from Yorktown. So he is a accomplished jazz guitarist, an all-about musician, not just jazz, but that's his main thing. And then he also is retired from NASA, so he worked in the engineering department of NASA Langley Research Center. So without further ado, I welcome you to the Clover Street Podcast, and let's say hello to my dad, Nick Kepics. Hey, Dad, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Chris. How you doing, man?
Good, good, good. And this intro music, which you probably heard in other episodes, was actually composed by you, right? What's the name of that song?
That's called Thelonious Punk.
Thelonious Punk. And how did you come up with that name? Well, obviously, there's Thelonious
Monk. It was sort of a tongue-in-cheek tribute to Monk. He was so influential in music for so many genres, and when you study jazz, it doesn't matter what your instrument is. You come across people like him, Monk, John Coltrane, Miles Davis, some of the great people who established Charlie Parker, and Monk was sort of he was a piano player. He was sort of unique among all of them in that a lot of his stuff was rhythmically. It was challenging to listen to the average listener because it sounded off a little bit. He would insert an extra
intentionally.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that was just Monk.
Was he aware he was a little off, or was that just in his blood? Or
that's a great question. No. I don't know, but and he wrote a lot of great songs. So, but anyway. You end up listening to a lot of those people to see what has come before.
Right.
So if you're going to pick up the torch and sort of carry it, you have to pay homage to what's come before, And so you end up listening to a lot of Monk, and he was so influential. When I wrote that tune, I thought, man, why don't I just, think of so I came up with Thelonious Punk, so.
All right, that's cool. How did you get into jazz anyway? Why is that so much I don't want to say it's your preferred genre. I imagine when you were younger, you got into rock and roll like everybody else. You probably had Beatlemania and everything. Yeah, but it's sort of unusual. I mean, most people don't go from that to heavy-duty jazz.
Actually, I disagree. I think musicians who... If you begin if you're young, when you start whatever instrument, and you stick with it, eventually you're going to encounter jazz, okay? And whether it's your particular preference or not is irrelevant. It's like you go into a candy store and have all this different candy. You can sample all the different candy, and some of it you're going to prefer more than others, But at least you taste the others to see whether you like it or not. And jazz, it allows you to, for me, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but but you're right. Let me back up a little bit. I was very young when I started. I was 14 when I got my first guitar, and jazz was the furthest thing from my mind, because the music it was 1963. The music that was out on the radio at the time was Beach Boys, the Ventures, the Beatles. Hendrix was just about to make
blow up,
big splash, and so it was a very exciting time musically, but. If you compare what was there and available then at that period of time, all the stuff that's not here today didn't exist yet. So that was what I had to pick from, you know. And there were all the great Motown groups, you know, the vocal. A lot of the 50s, Elvis was still real big. And so if you, I want to say it this way, with music, if you get the bug, if you get the bug, it sort of doesn't matter whether you go country, metal, rock, blues, jazz, you know, having the bug is what drives you forward.
Well, when you first picked up that guitar, you probably were strumming pop music, right? You didn't pick up and just start, you know, doing George Benson or anything. Yeah,
I didn't know how to play at all.
Yeah. But I mean, when you were learning, you have a choice of, I'm going to learn this song, or I'm going to. Did you learn it? Did you do it that way? Did you I want to learn this song, or did you really start off at the basic? Let me learn the notes. Let me learn melodies and.
Well, I didn't know anything about music.
Who taught you? You didn't just did you self-taught? Or?
Yeah,
really.
For the most part, yeah.
And you taught yourself to read music and music theory and all that.
Yeah, you pick it up along the way, and you first start by ear. It's what you hear, and you try and, you know, like there'd be a line from a Beach Boys song or any song, and you figure out what the notes are. First, you learn how to tune the instrument. You know,
sure.
You have to get that down, and then a lot of times the records, the everything was on the you know, the vinyl,
right.
45 RPMs or albums. A lot of times you'd have your instrument tuned properly with your tuning fork or whatever you had, and then it still wouldn't be exactly right with the record, because the record was either the playback speed of the turntable made it higher or lower in pitch, so you had to detune your instrument to match the record. So it was an E was an E, or B flat was a B flat.
Right.
You know? And once you got that, you figured that out. Then it was just trial and error, iteration after iteration. You'd like fun. And so you hear what they're singing, and you try and
That's Beach Boys, yeah.
Yeah. And you find out where the notes are. You figure it out, and then you eventually you get it, and you have this sense of accomplishment. It's like, yay!
Yeah.
And I mean, it's small, but it's not nothing. It's something. It propels you forward. Then you just keep at it, and then eventually you figure out, you begin to notice patterns where and I guess as you learn different lines from different songs by different artists, you begin to notice, well, this is the same as that. It might be in a different key, but it's this the same kind of a thing, you know.
So some of the stuff you learn is universal and applies to...
It is. And one thing that held me back, I didn't realize it, was vocabulary. I was actually...
Music vocabulary?
Yeah, you'd get a book or something, and it would have, it'd be a song, okay, and it would have chord symbols and the melody and all that. Now, actually reading the notes is, it's not that difficult. If you want to learn how to do it, you can. It's the musical stave, you know, the lines and the spaces. The spaces is F-A-C-E, face, and then the lines are every good boy does fine, E, G, B, D, F. And so once you have that, then you look at where the notes are, and you learn what the flat symbols are, the sharp symbols are. You know, that means, take it up or take it down or whatever. And it's rough going. It must
have been just hours and hours of practice, right? That's what'll do it, though, right? Just repetition.
Yeah.
And yeah.
You know, if you have, I spent hours, but that was non-harmful to anybody.
Sure.
It was just wasted a lot of my time.
Well, there's a lot of worse things you could have been into at the age of 14,
That's the point I was.
15.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you said your dad. You told me that your dad, my grandfather, got you your first guitar. Did he get that overseas?
No, he.
You just went down to the local.
No, it was in the Navy, and at that time, in rank, he was at the point where he was the guy who he had people under him that were subordinate to him.
Yeah.
And so he was the guy who decided whether or not they got to go on leave for the weekend or whatever,
right.
you know. And as they would have it, you know, different guys would come up, hey, and his name was Nick too. Hey, Nick, I'm going to go on leave this weekend. Can I? It was all. I just imagine my dad. Is all your work done? Or have you got somebody to cover your duty for you? That's you know.
Yeah.
And so they would bribe him with things.
What?
Yeah,
I mean, gave him a guitar.
Yeah, and this one guy, he had a bayonet and a guitar, and he gave him both of them. He brought them both of them. He said, "Here,
wow,
I got this." I said, well, "Where'd you get these?" You know, and he said, "Well, some guy wanted to take leave."
Yeah,
and he
gave
me this.
Do you remember what kind of guitar it was?
Yeah, I do.
Was it an acoustic?
No, it was an electric guitar.
Wow,
it was a Kent.
Okay, was it decent?
And it was horrible.
Oh, it was horrible. Yeah.
And I didn't know that it was horrible.
Right.
At the time, I didn't have anything to compare it
to. But would you say that that's the guitar where you really kind of got your chops and learned most?
And what I learned later, the frets on the guitar are how you make the different notes. You know, you hold down the string behind the fret, and then that changes the pitch. Well, the frets on that guitar were very, they were not smooth. They were sharp. And a higher quality guitar, if you just run your hand down the neck, that's what you do. When you first pick up a guitar to see if the fretwork is, you know, proper. So anyway, learning on that guitar, man, I got calluses. You know, you play for, you know, incessantly for a long time, and it eats up the skin on your fingers. You know, your left, if you're right-handed, your left hand is going through murder, but that process, eventually they toughen up.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and so learning on a guitar like that, I had some pretty good calluses, you know. And then when I would go into a music store and actually play a decent guitar, you know, it was like, wow, this thing is so easy to play.
And where is that guitar now, that first Kent?
Oh, I
bet you wish you'd have kept it, huh? Just
no.
as a memento? No? Really?
Yeah. Don't have any regrets.
Do you remember your second guitar? The first, I mean, was the second guitar you got a decent guitar?
Yeah, it was. It was Stratocasters.
And you bought that yourself?
I did. I had a job. I saved up money.
What'd you do? What job did you have?
I worked at a grocery store, Below Supermarkets.
I thought, didn't you work at A&P too?
I did. That was after I had worked at.
What'd you do? Were you a stocker? Or a cashier or what? I worked at Below too for a brief period of time.
No, I did everything. I started very early. My friend Joe Peel, his father was the manager of a Below supermarket. It was down on Hampton Boulevard.
In Norfolk.
And we lived in Norfolk.
Yeah.
And on right at where Little Creek sort of comes into Hampton Boulevard. And Admiral Taussig Boulevard is there, right by the stoplight. And it was, the building is still there, but it's, I don't even know if it's.
But you saved your money.
Well, I started bagging groceries.
Right. You started as a bag boy.
As a bag boy, yeah.
They don't even have those anymore, you know?
Oh, I know. And back then, if you would bag your groceries and, you know, and the customers would say, make sure you don't
put my eggs on the bottom.
Put my eggs on the bottom. Yeah. And so and what was useful about doing that was you learn how to be polite and interact with people,
Right.
because you're doing it in the hopes of getting a tip. And
That's right. Yeah, I remember that. I gave him $1 back in the day. I'd pull $1 out of my pocket and
well,
give it to him.
if back then, if you got a quarter,
Right.
boy, that was big money.
Yeah.
You could buy a pack of cigarettes for a quarter.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
They're like $6, $7, $8 a pack.
Yeah, and
unbelievable.
But so you do that all day, and especially like on weekends, Saturday,
Right.
And you take them out to the car, you load them in the car and everything, and sometimes you wouldn't get anything. They say, "Well, thank you," and sometimes they'd give you a dime or.
But you weren't relying on tips. I mean, you made
Well,
a
no.
little modest wage.
Yeah, but you can. I mean, back then, if you made a few bucks on the weekend, that was
Yeah.
big money.
So working at this Belo is where you saved your money to buy your second guitar, your first decent guitar.
And eventually, though, Joe's father, he recognized that I guess I was a hard worker. I was reliable and everything, and so my next job was this was on Sundays. I was the guy who would clean the floors in the supermarket. At first you had to sweep everything, and then you get a bucket and a mop, and there would be stains here and there, and you get the mop and you do those individually, and then they had this machine that you filled up with hot water and the soapy solution and everything, and and
it spun around, that big round thing?
Well, now that's a buffer.
Okay.
This was the scrubber.
I think I remember that too.
And you'd push it up and it sucked the water up too.
Yeah.
And it had like brushes.
They have those in Walmart now. Sometimes they'll close off.
And now they're automatic. They're by themselves.
Yeah, right.
And they're autonomous. But back then you had to.
So you got promoted from bag boy to floor cleaner.
And then from there, I think I went to...
Which you had no chances of making tips as a floor cleaner, so you must have
they
been
were paying me, though.
Paying you better than as a bag boy.
I was actually...
Yeah.
You'd punch the clock.
Right,
with a time card and all that. And then from there, I think I went to... it was either produce or dairy.
Traveled all over the grocery store.
Yeah, and you... And also, I think it was usually Wednesdays, the truck would come in.
Can you remember the day of the week?
Well, I'm probably wrong.
Yeah.
For some reason, I know it wasn't on the weekend. It was
just once a week the truck came in, huh?
Yeah.
Because nowadays they get a delivery every day.
Every day.
Something, dairy's coming in one day, soda, Pepsi guys here another day,
but
beer.
When the trucks came in, I was also expected to help them unload the truck. And
did they have that long?
They had
wheels where you would just roll the boxes.
Yeah,
down?
these coasters.
They still have those today.
But today, though, they use forklifts and a lot of stuff's on a pallet.
Right.
So it's much easier.
True.
But back then, you had to set up the mechanical, and it had to slope.
Yep.
So, and it was very, very hot.
Oh yeah.
Inside the truck. I mean, this is an 18-wheeler, a truck loaded.
I would think the guy who's driving the truck would be in the truck putting the stuff on the little conveyor belt.
Oh no, the truck driver doesn't help unload it.
Really?
The grocery store people did back then. Yeah, that was our job, and it was, and everybody pitched in. It was a lot of guys, as many as they could spare.
Right.
But it was. And so you're working. You begin. You open the doors, and there you start there at the end. And then once you're about halfway in, you sort of start setting things to the side and whatnot. And so you've made a dent, And every now and then, somebody would put up something on the little conveyor roller system and send it down. And before it made it to the bottom, it would fall off, and it might be a case of
jelly,
or Nabisco vanilla wafers, a box.
Oh, and what happened when it broke?
Then maybe
you get to eat it.
Yes, but you'd open up the cardboard box, and you had to see how many were damaged.
And then
you can't sell them. Yeah,
Right.
The ones that aren't damaged, you put on the shelf. Excuse me, and then the ones that are damaged, you enjoy. Everybody.
Yeah. Well, that's one little perk of unloading the truck. Yeah.
Little things, yeah. But anyway, that was hard work. That was very hard work. And then from there, I think he asked me if I wanted to learn how to be a cashier, to run the cash register. And back then, it was the kind with the buttons.
Yeah.
Nothing digital existed.
No.
There was no computers or internet
right.
or nothing back then. It was all mechanical.
Yeah.
And so, and you saw how it worked, and once you'd tally up the whole thing, you'd push this button and the drawer would open, and the people would give you money, and there wasn't credit cards or anything like that. You could write a check, or it was cash.
And did the cash register at the time figure out the change, or did you have to do that in your head real quick?
I think it did it for you. You could put amount tendered, but you still had to learn how to do it in your head.
Sure.
Like if the bill was $18.11 and they hand you a 20,
right? Sure.
You have to okay, well it's $1.89. So
it's funny. You go into so many places today in a grocery store, and like if your total is $21.25, and you give them
a 20 and a 5.
A 20 and a 5. Sir, this is too much. It's like, really? It's unbelievable how incompetent they are.
And I do that today, because I'll your example, whatever it is, I'll give them a 20 and I'll do I've already done the math in my head.
Right.
So when I see what I owe, and I'll give them enough so that I'll get a $5 bill back.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so I'll give them, more than adequate. And if I have change, I try and do it so there's no change, if you can.
Sure.
But and then you tell, and a lot of people that do that nowadays, they're just young kids, And you say, okay, here, and they go, what? But this is too much. No, that's okay. Just because
that amount
because I want a $5 bill back.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to explain it.
And you tell them, and they'll go, oh.
The other day, what happened here? Oh, my screensaver kicked in. Hang on. The other day, we were working out a grocery list for my mother-in-law. She has specific things, and she gives us money, and you go and buy this for me. And so Jen, my wife, handed me the list and said, can you look at this and just sort of read through all the items, and it's sort of like do a Price is Right type thing and sort of estimate.
Yeah.
And there was at least 20 things, maybe 25 things on the list. And I sat and I looked at each one, because I do all the grocery shopping in the house, so I have an idea how things are. And like I said, the 25 items on there, and I wrote beside them about what I thought they cost. And then I took the list to the grocery store, bought everything, and then bought her stuff separately on its own receipt.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like maybe $2 off.
That's pretty good.
I mean, it was unbelievable.
Well, let me tell you what. And
then we went through the receipt and looked at everything. Like, yep, you guessed that one right. You guessed that one right.
So you were pretty close. You already had a good idea.
Yeah.
So your estimate was very accurate.
Very accurate. Yeah.
Well, this later on when I went to school and was learning, especially in higher math. You've already gone through algebra 1 and 2 and geometry and pre-calculus and trigonometry and everything. And then you get to calculus, and I remember Mr. Tyler, the teacher I had, great, best math teacher I ever had. He said, okay, look, now here's the problem, okay. And he said, now, you sort of, when you solve a math problem, you sort of know by then, if you've made it all the way to calculus, you deserve to be there, okay. You deserve the chance to fail at it. But he says, now look, you sort of know what you have to do to get the solution. Now, so he said, always estimate. Do an estimate in your own mind of what you think was a ballpark where the answer will be. It will be like 3.8 or...
And why did he give you that advice? What was the point in that?
It's very important. That thing that you just said to you with the shopping list.
Right.
That's because that lets you know
I'm not way off.
Yeah.
In your answer.
And because every time you move the decimal, that's called an order of magnitude. You have 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, etc. Yeah. Excuse me. And so on. And each time you move that decimal, that's called it's 10 times bigger than the previous one. So if you, a typical example of a problem would be, there would be like a large cylindrical water container that's horizontal, okay, and it holds 50,000 gallons or whatever, okay, and so, but it's leaking, okay, and what you'll have to do, and you want to, it's not supposed to get below a certain level for whatever you're using.
The problem is already getting more complex.
Whatever the water's being used for, that's explained up front in the problem.
So what is the actual question?
Well, the question is, in order to compensate for the leakage, and if it's open on the top for also evaporation, how much water do you have to add to just keep it so the leak doesn't overtake the leak, and the evaporation and losses from all their sources doesn't let you go below that minimum level. And so, okay, you have a 50,000 gallon tank, and let's say it's half full, that's 25,000 gallons, and if the leak rate is such and such, and sometimes they don't even give you the leak rate. They'll say there's a hole in the bottom of the tank, 1/8 of an inch.
Oh, geez! Wow, that's
and it's not just the size of the hole; it's the water pressure above it, pushing it out. Because the more water, the faster it's going to come out, because the weight of the water.
And then if it's not an open top, if you just have a little hole on the top that releases some of the
you have to have for air to come in.
Right. Yeah. So you got to figure that out. Yeah.
But anyway, and so you estimate. So you already sort of know the ballpark you're in. If it's a small hole, here's the leak rate, and if you have evaporation, you factor that in. So it's not going to be a lot. And it turns out, this was surprising to me, a lot of times we'd do this with an open top tank. Evaporation, you lose much, much more water to evaporation than a small leak, an actual hole in the tank. And that's occurring all the time. But so you estimate, okay, well, you have to keep the input. You always want to have water going into the tank of about 3 gallons per hour or something like that, or to compensate 30 gallons per hour or whatever, because you're also using the water at the same time that it's leaking and evaporating. So, but estimating, don't ever underestimate your ability to estimate, and that's not just with math.
That'd be a good bumper sticker.
Well, no, I mean, think about it. Let's say your ability to, if you're a good estimator, and you know what kind of physical shape you're in, and how fast you can run, and distances, and things like this, and how long it's going to take you to get from here. If you had to run, if this, out your door, there's water, but let's say it was just land, and you had to run from here to that house over there, and that's maybe 200 yards away, 300 yards away, 2 or 3 football fields, okay? And so, wow, yeah, I'm in pretty good shape. I can run at a decent pace. I could probably make it from here to there in a minute, less than a minute, okay? And so your ability to just naturally do that, maybe there's a bear chasing you.
That will change things. Well, you know,
Well, I mean,
there's no way you're going to outrun that bear. There's
I know,
way.
but there's your motivation
Right, sure.
to decide whether that's a good escape route or not.
Yeah, yeah.
I know I can't make it that far before the bear's going to overtake me.
Right.
So, you know, anyway, that was a deep rabbit hole.
Yeah. But getting back to music and your journey in music, then you just became you eventually got a manager and a band put together.
Never had a manager.
I thought that my Uncle Bobby was your manager for a while.
He was a manager for other bands. And he got us a couple of gigs.
Okay.
But the first band that I was in, we didn't have a manager. Our bass player was sort of he got our gigs.
Yeah.
He was the...
How did you do that? It's so easy now, you know, with social media and the internet and everything. But I mean, how do you just go to different clubs and venues and just kind of find the owner? And
yeah, pretty much. I mean, and back then, they didn't have DJs or Muzak or anything like that back then. They might have had a jukebox or something like that.
Right.
But live music was what everybody wanted.
Right.
And so, and back then, downtown Norfolk hadn't been cleaned up yet. Okay, there was a lot of...
In the 60s?
Red light districts, yes,
Gotcha.
still left over from World War II.
Like the Navy and all
the
that.
Navy,
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, Dad told me his brother, Uncle Jimmy, he was in the Navy also. And when he was stationed in Norfolk, and Uncle Jimmy, I don't know if you ever met him or...
he ran for mayor or something, right? He was married to Aunt Irene?
Yes, it was.
I remember Uncle Jimmy.
Sheriff or police chief.
Yeah. That's what it was. Yeah,
He was the wheeler and dealer. He was the middle brother.
Was he here in Norfolk at the same time Appa was?
I don't know.
Okay.
But he did.
What do you mean the wheeler and dealer? As far as what? The Navy, just looking out for the guys?
No, not in the Navy. I mean, just as a person.
I gotcha.
He was always looking for an angle or something like that. But Dad said Uncle Jimmy, when he was in the Navy, he had downtown Norfolk somewhere. I don't know where, but he ran a whorehouse.
Really?
Yeah. And they were all over the place. You know, sailors out at sea for 12 months.
How long did he do this?
Until they shipped him out or
Yeah.
whatever. But,
Wow.
you know, I mean, that's just a testament to his ability to...
Most sailors are just trying to find one, not end up running one.
well, imagine, okay, and the remnant of that, the tail end of...
This is great, a story I've never heard before.
Well, the tail end of that is, you remember your mother's father, Bob Lucas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bob's Runway, yeah.
Bob's Runway. Okay, so that was... He ran a place where they had girls come out in skimpy outfits and they would dance.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
And sailors would come in and spend their money.
Yeah.
Now, that wasn't... They didn't go to the next level and...
Right.
But it was the same type of place where it attracted sailors that wanted, you know, you've been on a ship for 12 months, where are you going to go? I want to see some girls.
Right.
You know, and this place is like paradise, man.
So he ran the establishment, but he sort of just let the girls do what they wanted, make their own deals?
I have no details
I guess you
about
wouldn't,
that.
But how did you, Appa told you the story. Yeah.
But the point is that I was trying to make is downtown Norfolk, our bass player, Bill Gauntz, he was the wheeler and dealer in our band as far as getting gigs.
Yeah.
And so he got us this gig, and everybody was in high school. We were still in high school. I don't remember what grade, but I was the
Granby, right? Granby?
Yeah. I was the guitar player. Bill was the bass player. Russell Scarborough was the drummer. Our singer was Steve Wilson. And every now and then we had a rhythm guitar player, Fred Gray. But the 4 and Steve, our singer, played harmonica too. He was very, very talented.
What was his name?
Steve Wilson.
Okay.
Just amazingly talented. But so anyway, Bill got us this gig, and we played 7 days a week.
Really?
Really.
And this is the 60s?
Yeah, there was that much demand.
Mid 60s?
65, 66.
And what do you average
67.
as far as getting paid back then?
Well, I don't remember.
You don't remember?
It was compared nothing hardly.
Yeah.
I mean, but
how did he get you these gigs?
I don't know. He would go in and talk to the people, and so he got us this gig at I remember the name of the place. It was called the Jamaican Room. And every night we would go down there and play for 4 hours, 9 to 1, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
And that didn't mess up your schooling at all?
Well, it challenged it, you know. And then Sunday, it was like it was longer on Sunday because we had to start earlier in the day. Or
just because everyone's off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and we played the stuff that was out at the time, the Bee Gees were very big. We did a lot of Bee Gees things, the Beatles, Hendrix, Iron Butterfly. Acid rock was
You weren't doing any jazz?
No, I wouldn't.
No.
That came later.
Okay.
And the friends, your musician friends that you hang around with, you'll say, "Hey, man, have you heard this?" You get exposed to new stuff just by your.
That's how you do it back then, without the internet.
Yeah, it's really how you do it now too.
True.
And so you'd hear, and Joe Correa, my buddy, he exposed me to a lot of stuff. He was probably the biggest pull to.
Did he
listen
played in your band
to
too?
Other stuff. No, we never played in the same band. He was in a band called Full Circle, and he was a bass player. And then later he went to Norfolk State for a couple of years to study music. I don't think he finished. From there, he took private lessons from, a guy who was teaching him how to play piano. But
that's what I thought. I remembered him playing piano. I didn't know he played bass. Just a regular bass, not an upright.
No, just regular Fender. Yeah, and he had long hair. Everybody had long hair. And
but were you telling me about one specific gig that you guys got or something? Were you in the middle of telling me, or no?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It was just the scene back then at the time. There was big demand for live music. There was a lot of bands. There was us, the Misfits, the Aliens, the Rogues, all the other, Bill Deal and Rondell's, Buddy and the Pop Tops, all the people that were here in this area working steady,
Yeah.
And back then, this was before Scope was built or any of that. In Virginia Beach, they had this
the Dome, right?
The Virginia Beach Dome.
Yeah.
You can go online to look at pictures.
They just recently. It was the longest period of time where they were trying to figure out what to do with that property, and they just announced what they're going to do with it.
Okay.
Online, I forget what they're going to turn it into. Maybe some sort of recreation center.
But that was the only.
Yeah.
And it was, by today's standards, it was podunk.
Tell us some of the bands that you saw at the Dome.
Oh, man.
Because people nowadays, they don't even remember the Dome, much less some of the killer acts.
I saw everybody there. You remember the song Louie Louie?
Yeah, the Kingsmen.
The Kingsmen, they came. Junior Walker and the All-Stars.
You saw Led Zeppelin?
Not there.
Where?
Let's save that for later.
Okay.
I thought you want to hear about the Dome?
I could have sworn you said you saw Led Zeppelin there, but Jimi Hendrix too?
I saw Hendrix there.
Wow.
The Rolling Stones, the Animals, the Doors, James Brown.
Wow, James Brown.
A couple of times, yeah.
Oh,
and the Famous Flames. Oh, man.
Huh.
Yeah. A lot of the Motown groups came there. Frankie Valli. Almost, that was the only, if they were touring and they were going to come to this area.
You said they didn't have the Scope at the time, right?
No, this was
Scope didn't exist.
Way before Scope.
That's all I remember. I remember the Scope always being there in my life.
Yeah, it was there by the time
right.
You came along. But everybody, all.
Did you go see some of these bands with your bandmates?
Oh yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
if we could, you know. A lot of the bands that I wanted to see, I was for a long time, the Kingsmen.
Louie.
Mike Mitchell, I think, was the guitar player's name in that band. And, yeah, I mean, they did other songs besides Louie.
Right.
Yeah, Louie, if you were in a band, you had to play Louie, because that was what everybody wanted to hear. It was the #1 song. Okay?
Yeah.
They also did a song called Money, which was great. And they
Money.
did.
No, that's Pink Floyd, I'm thinking. Never mind.
You know, the best things in life are free.
Great. Yeah.
But you can give them to the birds and the...
That's what I want.
The guitar part in that song, it was really cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
did you learn it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, I got to see him. I got his autograph. You know,
did you?
I met him afterwards and everything.
Oh wow.
He was a tall, thin, white guy.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. And but you know, and I think he played a 335, a red 335, and so that, you know, they did what they do, and that was a cool concert. But everybody wasn't enamored with them the way musicians were.
Sure.
Or
Oh yeah, there's a deeper level of appreciation there.
Yeah, but I mean, so certain bands would come that I definitely wanted to see, and other ones came that I take or leave, you know. But anyway,
and ticket prices weren't ridiculous back then, like
I
they are
think
now.
Hendrix cost $4.
$4 to see Jimi Hendrix,
something like that.
I can't even imagine that.
That was amazing when Hendrix came out.
Now, where did you see him? You didn't see him at the height of his popularity, did you? A little bit before that, or did you see him?
Well, I don't know how to
you don't remember
that.
what year? You remember what year you saw him?
Not exactly.
Okay.
I could look it up online.
Yeah.
Because it says when Hendrix came to the Dome.
Right.
And but all he had his first couple albums were out. Okay. So he was big.
Yeah.
Everybody knew who he was.
But for $4, that's unbelievable.
For guitar players, it was
general admission. Like
yeah.
there's no signed
but
seats.
acoustics were terrible.
At the
it was
Dome?
This big aluminum hemisphere.
Right. Yeah, I saw pictures.
Not even a hemisphere, you know. So that concert, when we went in there, I forgot who the warm-up band was or if they even had one, but the stage was all set up and everybody was just milling around. You know, the place was packed, and so everybody's just waiting. You know, nothing. Right. Yeah, there you go. That's a picture.
Yeah. We'll show that online.
And so Hendrix comes out by himself, not the drummer and bass player, just him.
Right.
And he comes out, and he's got his guitar around his. I think he's, you know, and so.
And is the place going nuts as he walks out?
Well, he doesn't say anything. He doesn't say anything.
But the crowd, were they going insane?
Well, everybody clapped, you know, and he's smoking a joint.
And it was illegal back then, right?
Oh, yeah. And it was in the yellow paper, the zigzag. You know, they had white and they had yellow papers.
Yeah.
You know, it was a yellow joint. I remember.
Okay.
So anyway, he walks over and he plugs his cord in to the you know, his junk, and he's getting all set up and everything. And then he takes the joint and he sticks it up in the behind the nut on the guitar, so the strings are holding it.
Okay, yeah.
And he just leaves it there.
Yeah, I've seen that done before.
And so anyway, he's all set up.
Eddie Van Halen did that with cigarettes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, and then he just starts playing.
Right.
By himself, just Hendrix on guitar for like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Just free form.
Well, that's what people are there to see.
It was.
How close were you to the stage?
Not as close as I would like to have been.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't.
But it was so loud.
Yeah.
You could hear it. I wish I could have been closer to see his hands.
Right.
Because when you'd go to see a local group, you'd get as close as me and Joe. When we would go, we would get as close as we could so we could watch their hands and figure out how they doing this stuff, man. You know.
And you could actually pick up just by watching their hands. You could learn stuff.
Oh yeah.
Is that right?
It's If that's something you're trying.
And
to
he
do.
was southpaw, wasn't he?
Who, Hendrix?
Yeah.
No, well, but he played a right-handed guitar upside down.
Okay.
So that's I mean, you could.
That must have been something to see, huh?
Yeah, it was, and so I can't describe what it was like, and you know, everybody was smoking pot
in the crowd.
In the crowd,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
everybody was high and stoned or on acid or something.
Yeah.
And so he does this for like 15 minutes, man. It was just pouring out of him, you know, all this. It was amazing. And then I guess it was prearranged with his bass player and drummer. When he would do this one thing, they would come out and sit down and plug in and join in. And then the concert started with the whole band. And he played everything, you know, Purple Haze, you know, Foxy Lady, Fire, Hey Joe, you name it.
Oh, man.
All the stuff.
That must have been something to see.
It was $4.
Yeah.
Man, that's bad. $4, man. That's a lot of money.
Do you remember any of the shows that you went to that you had really particularly good seats, or you were really kind of close to the stage that was really memorable? Like, man, I was almost up front, or I was in the front row, or anything like that? Any particular band? I've been to some shows where I've been in the front row.
A few. Yeah. But that was later on. I mean, from my own... The thing that, where we would, when there was another band playing somewhere, like they had all the, back then in, I was trying to remember, there was two, there was a place in Hampton and I think a place in Portsmouth, the Lighthouse, or something like that.
Beach House, maybe the Beach House. That was.
I don't remember that. It was. But it was a place for bands.
Right.
Okay. And
local bands or bigger acts?
Local bands.
Yeah.
And there was one in Norfolk at 5 Points in Norview called The Happening. But we would play there. Our band would play there. Yeah.
And how many?
Quagmire was the name of our band. And we would play there.
How many people did that seat?
Oh, it was probably not really that big, and it didn't. Everybody stood.
Right. Well, that's what I meant.
It wasn't. Yeah.
Maybe like 300 or
a lot. You know,
Okay.
whatever the fire code was.
Yeah.
But every time the Headstone Circus was playing there was a guitar player in that band, Mike Johnstone, that was like the guy. He was very, very good. And if you were a guitar player, I went to see him as often as I could, wherever I could. Me and Joe both did, because he was so good. He played a Telecaster, and he would stand where he stood, you know, usually on the right side of the stage, and we would be right in front of him. If this was a stage, and he'd be standing there, and me and Joe would be like, just watching the whole time.
And you said he was a local guy?
Yeah.
And did you ever get to meet him?
No, I didn't. Not really. A lot of my friends knew him.
Yeah.
And
Did he ever go on to anything bigger?
I don't know. He actually later on he switched to pedal steel. He's still alive. He actually.
Oh, really?
There's a forum, a steel guitar forum, and he comments a lot there.
Okay.
And but he had such great technique.
Yeah.
It was flawless.
Right.
And whether they were doing John Mayall, a blues tune, or Eric Clapton, you know, Cream, whatever they were doing. They did Heat Wave, Martha and the Vandellas, and his chords, he'd play chords, and then when he would do a lead or something like that, it was just and he would use his little finger on the volume pot or the tone pot like a wah-wah, you know.
Wow.
And it was just, he had was perfected. You know, it was what I was striving for as a guitar player to one day, maybe get close to what he already could do. And
you had mentioned Bill Deal and the Rondells.
I think they're still around, as a matter of fact.
Well, I think I know somebody that either played with them, maybe plays with them now, or used to play with them. His name's Peter Pope. Have you ever heard of Peter Pope? He's an audio engineer at Studio Center, where I used to do voiceover stuff, and I think he may have played with them.
I think through the grapevine, perhaps is ringing
I'll bet you met him before.
Little bell. Yeah,
I'm just curious if you know
You
him.
meet so many people.
Yeah.
But as a matter of a couple of weeks ago at Hayashi, some people came in, and they had just been across the street at the brewery over there at City Center across the street. I can't remember the name of it.
It's a newer place, right?
Well, it's...
I think I saw it when I left there yesterday.
And they said, well, we just came from there. Bill Deal and the Rondells are playing over there.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And I said, oh, really? I said, I used to go see them all the time. They were good, man.
Yeah,
I mean, back in the 60s and early 70s, man. And they wrote...
It's amazing they're still around. And they're local.
Not all of them.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they've changed members over the years. But
they were tight, you know. And I remember their guitar player, he played a Jazz Master, which...
Is that the type of guitar it is?
That's an actual name of the brand. And it was good for beach music, which they did a lot of. They were like a beach
Is
band.
that still what they do, primarily? Beach music?
I don't... I guess, yeah. But anyway, you asked about Led Zeppelin.
Oh, yeah. Where'd you see them?
That was at some amphitheater up near D.C.
Oh, okay.
Right before I went into the Air Force, this was in 1969, I had to go in September, I believe. It was my report date.
Right.
Or no, not... It wasn't that. It was July. It must have been May or June, because I went in, or it was the following year. Maybe it was 1968. I don't remember. But as a treat, because they knew I was going to go to the Air Force, and they bought my ticket.
Who's they?
My friends.
Oh,
it was two or three of my friends. We drove up there. And, so it was like a farewell gift.
Oh, that's cool. We're going to take you to see Led Zeppelin.
Well, we didn't know that Led Zeppelin was going to be there. It was the Who.
Oh.
It was the amphitheater. That was
got
They
you.
were on the
Okay.
big name on the bill.
Right, I got
There was
you.
only two bands there.
Right.
The opening band was Led Zeppelin.
Oh, man.
They opened.
When did you find that out before they walked out onto the stage?
Oh, well, yeah. Well, when we got there, it was outside, like say, an amphitheater.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful
must have
day,
been
just
great.
a perfect, beautiful day.
Yeah.
And it was like where you had the stage, and then it was sort of a little valley came down, and then it swooped up to a hillside, you know, where there were trees and stuff, and everybody was. This was the '60s. There was, you know, flower power. There was hippies there, the girls dancing around, you know, with the tie-dyed. Everybody was tripping on acid, and you know, it was like. So that was a cool concert. I got to see Led Zeppelin and the Who.
Yeah.
And the Who, they had already done the Tommy, you know, the rock concert. So that was
so they were already on their way to superstardom.
The height of their Pete Townsend, you know, and both bands were just excellent. Led Zeppelin, they had a couple albums out by then.
Yeah.
And so
boy, that must have been
Jimmy
fun.
Page was kind of a strange guitar player. It's like he never really looked at the audience, and he had real long hair, and he would just play his guitar and hold his head down. So all you saw was hair.
Like Slash.
I guess, yeah. And it's but they did all their big stuff, you know, that people remember. So anyway,
cool.
that's yeah, it was a great time. When I started listening to jazz, Joe would turn me on. He said, "Oh, listen to this guy, Kenny Burrell. He's a guitar player, and this guy, Herbie Hancock, Bill Evans, Oscar Peterson, Miles Davis, John Coltrane."
So Joe turned you on to a lot of these?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I consider myself very fortunate to have grown up with this stuff, especially that Herbie Hancock album, "Speak Like a Child." Whenever I hear that, it's like smelling a box of crayons. It takes me back to, I feel like I'm 5 and 6 years old, sitting on the living room floor at University Square and listening. It's so comforting.
Yeah.
That whole album is great.
It is.
But there's actually a lot of albums like that, and I have the album covers, the artwork and the pictures burned into my memory, and it's just so great.
We did. I was in a band. We played a wedding downtown Norfolk one time at the World Trade Center.
I know where they are. Right across from Nauticus.
Yep. And you could see, out over the whole thing. It was somebody important's daughter's wedding.
Right.
I don't remember who, but during the dinner set. And I was just a side man. I was the guitar player. I wasn't the leader of the band or anything.
Right. Was this with Eric or?
No, I think this was with LF Edwards, First Class Band.
Okay.
But Eric Stevens also did a lot of stuff that did more than just the pop songs, the 3-chord songs. A, D, E. And so anyway, but I remember at this one gig, I think this is where it was, they called Dolphin Dance. And this was during the dinner set, when you're playing like Girl from Ipanema, smooth background, listening stuff while people are eating.
Right.
And I thought, oh man, this is, because I had actually learned that song just on my own. I thought it was a cool song. It was one of Herbie's cool compositions, Dolphin Dance. And here he called it during the dinner set. And, there was a chart for it and everything. And I didn't even need the chart.
Yeah.
I felt
cool.
oh, man, I did something right. But it's a cool song. It's a great song for.
And can you tell the people about the that one gig that you did at the nudist colony, or what was it, Deer Run?
That was with Eric Stevens. Yeah, it was
I'd like to hear the
Whitetail
story.
Park.
Well, that's what it is, Whitetail. And they're still around.
Oh yeah, Ivor.
Yeah,
I actually met a cat who played a gig there recently. Was telling me about it. Yeah. And I said, oh man.
Well, tell us the story.
This was actually that was an odd day because we had 2 gigs on the same day.
On the same day.
Yeah, it was. So the first gig was in Virginia Beach. It was a wedding reception.
Yeah.
Or something like that at the Cavalier. I can't remember where. That's not what I remember about that day, but it was the same band, though. It was Eric Stevens. So we finished the one gig, and then from there, we had to go all the way out to Ivor.
Yeah.
For the next gig, which was at the nudist colony.
Okay. You guys were probably talking about it all day. You knew about it.
Me and the drummer, though, I don't remember his name, but it was a young kid. We didn't use a lot. He wasn't our regular drummer, but he was a sub that we used from time to time. And so we had like several hours between the end of the one gig and the beginning of the next gig. And so Eric says, well, just as long as you're there in time, go ahead and eat or whatever, whatever you want to do, go home, rest. Me and the drummer, right from the end of the one gig in Virginia Beach, we drove right to...
Because you just wanted to check out the scene?
I know. That's kind of a sign of how lecherous we were.
Yeah.
But... So we get there.
Yeah, tell us the details.
3 hours before the gig starts.
Yeah. You have all your stuff in your car.
Yeah. And so we get there, and you drive down this sort of a private driveway
Sure.
looking thing, and then you get to a gate, sort of a security gate where there's a, and you know you have to be a member or have a reason for them to let you in.
Right.
You know, and so me and the drummer, you know, we get there, and this guy walks out from the guard shack or whatever it was, and he's wearing a T-shirt, and that's it.
What? Oh, wow.
And so, you know, I roll the window down, and, you know, you try not to... Try to make eye contact.
Yeah, sure.
And he said, yeah, can I help you? I said, yeah, we're in the band who's playing here later on. We're here. We're early. Thought we might get lost or something.
Yeah,
We want to make sure we can find a place. He said, "Oh yeah, well just go down the road. You'll see where it's going to be. It's underneath the. They had this huge shelter. It was like just a roof underneath which it was like a concrete floor where it was picnic tables and that's where the band was going to set up. So anyway, we drove down there and
that you?
Yeah, let me just see. It's Susie. Hold on. Oh, okay. I'll get that later. Where was I? Oh,
so
anyway,
you're going down the driveway.
We drive back into the thing, and it's a beautiful day, summer day. You know, sun's out, and it's just big open field. You know, and the guy says when he lets you in, he says there's no dress code. So you can wear clothes. You can
even the band, they didn't specify.
Yeah, the band. It was we were invited to. Yeah. So you can wear tops and no bottoms, bottoms and no tops. You don't have to wear anything. You can wear everything.
Yeah.
It's totally whatever you like. Okay.
Right.
But it was just a large open area with volleyball nets and tennis courts and, you know, badminton and horseshoes and you know, just outside activities and stuff. And so we drive over to the place and we unload our stuff and put everything on the stage and everything, and we take our cars and park where they told us to park, and then we just start wandering around, you know.
Just walking around the property.
Just walking around. And we found a picnic table somewhere in like shade.
And you just wanted to sit and
we
people
just sat
watch.
there. Yeah.
and men, women, children were there?
Everything.
Wow.
Everything.
And some people had clothes on?
Ugly, old, fat women. Ugly, old, fat men. Beautiful young girls. Young boys, you know, if that's what you're into.
You didn't see any men that were aroused, I hope?
No.
Okay, good.
Nobody.
Good.
And a funny thing, after a while, you know, you sort of get used to it. You know, the novelty sort of wears off.
Yeah.
And it's like, no big deal.
Right.
You realize everybody has junk.
Yeah.
And it's just
so
human beings.
What did Eric say when he showed up 3 hours later? What are you guys doing here already? You already set up and everything, huh?
Well, he didn't know that we had been there that whole time.
So did you get a little crowd accumulate around you when you started playing?
Oh yeah, well by then it was like it had turned just like twilight dark, and when finally everybody else showed up.
Turned all the tiki torches on and everything.
Well, and we were under the shelter.
Right.
It was like one of those set-up stage things, you know. And so we're playing, and there was this one beautiful woman, a blonde, totally nude.
Yeah.
Probably in her mid-30s or something like that, maybe pushing 40, but very, very attractive, you know. And so she goes up to Eric, and you know we're playing, and she says, "Would you like to dance?" And so
isn't Eric
playing? He was the leader. Well, but I mean he played keyboard, and so the rest of us we didn't need him.
Right.
He was this vocalist.
I got you. So he did it.
Yeah.
He
So
went to
he's
dance?
out there dancing.
And he's got like a tuxedo
his
on.
tuxedo.
Yeah.
With this totally new woman. And it was just one of those odd things you don't normally see every day.
Boy, Eric must have been tickled.
But and then later on we asked him, we said, was it difficult to, to control yourself? Or, and he said, no, not really. I mean, Eric was already older than the rest of us anyway.
Right.
He'd been around forever. It's like a dinosaur. But no, it was a cool gig.
Yeah, that's fun.
But the thing is, it wears off. Like I said, the novelty wears off, and it's no big deal. When you
and you're so separated from the rest of the world. Everybody's just there on the same page, and it's just not that big of a deal. And I imagine they didn't really have cell phones back then with all the cameras and stuff. So
no, y'all wouldn't have been allowed to.
Right. Sure, that makes sense.
I'm sure to do that anyway. So that was an interesting gig. But so anyway, I guess moving towards how did I get into jazz? That sort of all happened along the way as I started. When I first started listening to jazz, I didn't like it. I didn't understand it. I remember Joe played impressions for me, John Coltrane, and it was like, turn it off. I hate it.
Yeah.
'Cause I didn't understand it. I didn't know how to listen to it or what was happening,
What happened? What made you finally start to
Well,
get into
you as you learn more and your ears get more educated about what you're listening to and what they're doing and how to do it and what.
See, I liked it from day one because you introduced it to me so young. I wasn't like
an easier transition for you.
Probably.
You didn't have an obstacle in front of you.
I thought it was cool how he was all over the place with the sax, and it just that's to me that was real jazz. And then years later, I got introduced to like fusion jazz and modern jazz, and it's just sort of elevator type stuff that was very rigid and very structured. And to me, that wasn't real.
One thing that happened to me was because I had the opportunity to see so many different bands at the Dome or wherever, and a lot of them had horns. Motown was big back then.
Yeah.
You had the Miracles, the Four Tops, everybody, Otis, Smokey Robinson, everybody was, the Temptations, and all the girl bands too. It was.
Did you see any girl bands?
A few, yeah.
Okay.
But they had horns. James Brown, especially, was probably the biggest.
I can't imagine James Brown without horns.
Oh yeah, and so and then when I started listening to horn players, Train and Miles and everybody, when I tried to do what they were doing on the guitar, that was very instructive.
Yeah.
And then when I listened to players like Herbie Hancock and Bill Evans harmonically, what they were doing on the piano, and I tried to figure those chords out on the guitar, that was equally instructive. Now I listened to other guitar players too, but there's I guess it's just a characteristic of instruments. A guitar has its characteristics. Horns have their characteristics. Pianos have their characteristics. So there's certain things that you can do on a horn that you wouldn't typically do on a guitar.
Yeah.
And likewise with piano, So, but if you listen, it's all music, and so that I just always had this strong affinity for horns. I love horns. Horns are, especially if you got a trumpet, a sax, and a trombone, and you can.
Well, your first album that you made had a lot of trumpet on it, right?
Oh yeah, it did.
Yeah.
And I just think horns. To me, that's the perfect group. you'll have your three-piece rhythm section. It's usually piano, bass, and drums, or guitar, bass, and drums. You have your chord player, your bass, and your percussion. And then you have either a vocalist or a horn player. And the horn player is the melody player, you know. And that's like the perfect combo. You know, of course, you can expand from there, add other stuff, but that's really all you need. Those are the essentials. In a musical sense, that's all you need to really have a full sounding.
What was that keyboard player? I think you used him a few times. His name was Mike something. He played keyboard, black guy. I remember when I was a busboy at Mountain Jack's, he came in there and played the keyboard. Young black guy, Mike something. I think his name.
Mike Jones.
Was that his name?
I think so. Yeah.
Man, he was good. I remember they hired him, and he just came in there by himself, and he just played the keyboard. And I
don't know what happened to him. I don't even know if he's still in the area. I'd love to.
Find him. Mike Jones.
Yeah, we actually worked a few gigs a lot together. You know,
Yeah.
we messed around and did stuff. He was a good player. But another thing, I've been very fortunate knowing Russell. Russell is like
Russell Scarborough. Yeah.
He knows everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, literally. He's like the guy. You need a horn player, a sax player, call Russell. He'll give you 10 guys.
Yeah.
And he'll tell you which one to call first, and he'll order them.
Did you do that with him in this new band you've put together? Did you reach out to him at all?
Oh yeah, I still do.
Yeah.
I not so much anymore because I have a lot of the numbers myself.
Right.
But you know, if I need somebody who plays vibes or fiddle or whatever, you know, or pedal steel, he'll know somebody. Right. But also, this area, you got, okay, you have Langley. You have the Air Force Band here. You have the Army Band, okay. That was, when Fort Monroe was still a military base, the Army Band was there. I know a lot of the guys in the Air Force Band, the Army Band. And in Norfolk, you have the Navy School of Music, which is where the Navy guys and the Marines go, you know. And even separate from the school, you have the other military bands. And military musicians are top-notch.
You had one last night, right?
I use them whenever I can.
Yeah.
These guys are phenomenal. You have to understand, I mean, just think about it. What is the military? Okay, these are the people that go to war to protect our country.
Right.
Okay, so these aren't the guys that carry rifles. Okay, these are the guys in the band. So it's kind of like the icing on the cake. As far as the military is concerned, this is extra. It is so competitive.
To be accepted
to just get in,
yeah,
for an audition. And then to make the audition.
So you wouldn't go in the military not knowing how to play and be like, I'd like to learn an instrument. I'll go join the military band.
Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are already at a high level.
Right.
And then they start weeding them out from there. So the guys that are in are all.
And you said your friend Blake was an instructor in the military?
I don't know if he was ever an instructor, but I think he might have been. He introduced me to a lot of guys. Eric used tons of military musicians. Yeah. So I met all these guys along the way, you know, and
they're usually hungry for gigs.
Oh yeah, and everybody wants to play.
Yeah.
You know, I mean but these guys do it full time. This is their day job. This is how they pay their rent.
Yeah.
Okay, whether they're military or not, professional musicians. If you're going to do that to make your living, it would help if you're good.
Right. Well, I mean, since it is your only job, you have plenty of time to practice, and you know.
Well, a lot of these guys have been to school. The bass player I used last night, he's from Jersey. He went to he told me where he went to school. I can't remember, but it was Rutgers or someplace like that. He got his degree in music, and so they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, he was good. He was good.
Oh yeah, I mean they understand theory, harmony, the whole, you know, voice leading, arranging, the whole 9 yards. You know, stuff that I missed all of that. You know, I never could go to a class and somebody say, well, here's how you do this. This is the guitarist's function. This is this instrument's function. But like I say, you pick it up along the way, and then you incorporate it, and you eventually you do what you're supposed to do. And even now, when I meet young people that are coming up, I try and help them out, you know, all that I can. Just like, okay, look, you're gonna, if you stick with this, you're gonna need to know this eventually. You don't have to learn how to read music and understand all this stuff right now, but it's really not that hard.
Right.
And here's some of the vocabulary that if you're going to stay in this profession, respect it enough to learn the discipline of the vocabulary and some of the rules, so you don't sound like an idiot when you're talking to somebody else. You know. You
still work with Otis Brooks?
I haven't seen Otis since COVID. I mean, he's around.
He's been doing a lot of stuff. He was on the Hampton Road show.
I have seen him on TV, yeah.
Yeah, he's been doing a lot of gigs.
Yeah, I encourage, he's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
A good
I like
player.
Him.
What else was I going to say? But I've been fortunate to live in an area where there are so many good musicians. I mean, just... and that's made it easier for me to. It took me a long time. Russell is the one who kept urging me to become a band leader. I was a sideman for years. I never wanted to be a band leader. I just wanted to show up, play the gig, take the money, go home.
Right.
And because it's minimal responsibility. Okay, all you got to do is get yourself.
What are the benefits of being the leader?
You get to call the tunes.
Ah.
The leader calls the tunes.
Gotcha.
And so, you know, and
you usually,
as a sideman...
You usually work out your playlist before the gig, right?
Not really. If it's a jazz gig, we do it sort of spontaneously at the gig.
All right.
And, yeah, you don't have to put too much thought into that.
Right.
But I never had the confidence to become a band leader, to front my own thing, you know, because I had the sideman mentality, you know. I was like, so that it took a lot of continuous urging. Russell said, "No, do it, man. You do it, you know." And then so I remember the first couple times I did it as, you know, the Nick Kepics quartet or whatever, you know. And I would hire sidemen.
I remember Full Circle. Didn't you have a band named Full Circle or something, Inner Circle or something? It was one of your early bands. I remember you even made your first business cards and it had a picture of the yin and yang. You remember that? A long time ago. Maybe.
Yeah, that was brief. That was.
Was that your first? Where you were the first leader? I like you as the Nick Kepics band, but I know you're sort of playing with titles right now, right? Because you called yourself something different last week. I looked on Facebook, and then you called yourself something different this week.
I'm still kind of undecided about that, and it just has to do with today's society and what people expect. They want a brand. They want to they want to Coca-Cola, McDonald's.
I don't know if that much thought needs to be put into it, though, if you're going to be primarily a jazz band, you know?
Well, right, true. But we can do other stuff besides jazz.
Right.
I was going to say, when I was with LF, I was with him for like 5 years. Man, those guys, they could do 4 hours of country, nothing but country.
Or something else.
Or anything else. Yeah. I mean, they were all military guys, you know.
What's LF? Does that stand for something?
Luther Franklin. LF Edwards. A first-class band. That was the name of his band.
Okay.
And he was, in the Army band. He played trumpet.
Are they still around?
No, he doesn't do that anymore.
Oh, okay.
He also was like a boat captain, these tour boats that would take people out into harbor. And he had
like the Spirit of Norfolk or...
for doing that,
wow.
you know. But I learned a lot in that band. honestly, country music, I learned more from that genre about playing the guitar than any other
country music
genre, yeah, than rock or jazz or anything else. Because country, believe it or not, the country players are very, very good. And it's a lot of just about knowing your instrument and control and how to make it do what you want it to do, you know. So, but it was, yeah, very enjoyable. Is that?
Yeah, it's still recording. I'll let a little pop up a reminder, and I just wanted to make sure it didn't stop recording. Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Yeah, that's. So
well, what effect did all this have on you? I'm just curious.
I mean,
you sort of couldn't escape it.
I have
if you wanted to.
I have had. Now that I'm a semi-professional DJ, sometimes before my DJ gig starts, when I'm just setting up my equipment, or even right after, when I'm just starting to break stuff down, I'll put on some crazy Coltrane or Miles Davis or something, and I'll have like the black janitor will walk up to me and he'd be like, "Wow, this is great, man. What is this?" You know, and it's like nothing of what I was playing while I was DJing, because people want to hear the pop and the K-pop and the you know, Lady Gaga and all. And I mean, she's great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
well, it was whatever's trending.
Yeah,
that changes through time and slowly. But you can play a wedding today, and they'll still go crazy over My Girl.
Oh yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
This old stuff.
Brown Eyed Girl by Van Morrison.
Yeah,
yep,
I mean, it's timeless stuff.
Sure.
And the modern stuff too. You know, you have to have a mix. So, yeah, it's amazing that you do that, and somebody will come out and say, "Oh."
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to be able to sneak one of those songs in, like during a wedding cocktail hour or something. You know, it's just, I know there's at least one or two people in the crowd that are like, this DJ knows what's up, you know. But the most valuable thing I've learned is to read the crowd. You know, that's really,
that's as important as estimating.
Very, very important. You know, you play the slower, older stuff in the beginning, not just because it's cocktail hour and because everybody's just kind of chilling and eating.
We ease them into it,
right? But the older crowd is usually always there first. They're the first to leave, so you know, and then you play the insane Bad Bunny and Cardi B and stuff near the end of the night, when, you know, it's just drunk people on the dance floor and they just want to have fun and have a beat, you know. But
it was kind of funny last night. The last song of the last set, some people that were in the having dinner, they'd finished their dinner, and then it was about 10 or 15 people. They came into the bar.
Okay.
To listen to the band.
Yeah.
And so it was some young little kids too, you know. It was you know, and their parents and whatnot. And so we were playing a song, and we said, "Well, that's it for tonight. Thank you for coming out." And they said, "Oh, play one more, you know." And so we did, you know. And the little kids. And everybody started dancing, you know.
Just the kids?
Well, everybody.
Okay.
I mean, the adults were dancing with the kids.
What song was it?
It was just some rhythm changes, you know, just a B-flat blues kind of a thing, up-tempo, almost a bebop
But you
thing.
could dance to it.
Yeah. It had a kind of a funky groove to it, you know. And they were like, "Oh, you know," just clapping, and I was like, "Oh man, you guys should have came in here earlier, man." Right. And one of the guys, it was this young black guy. He came up. He said, "Man, you guys are great," you know, and he wanted to shake all our hands and everything, and we thanked him.
I hope the manager was taking notice of this.
Lenny doesn't even show up.
Oh, really?
His brother runs Thursday night. The owner, Lenny, he trusts me enough to, which is good, you know.
And it's a regular weekly thing for you guys now, right? Every Thursday?
Yep.
For the time being?
Until it isn't.
Yeah.
In this business, you...
It's nice to have that throughout the entire summer, you know.
Oh, yeah. You do it as long as it's there.
Right.
You know? But you... there would be a time when it's not, and there'll be a new hot spot or whatever. You have to keep.
Do you have any other gigs lined up?
Just private stuff. Yeah, not public stuff.
Like parties and weddings and that kind of thing? Or?
Yeah, business functions. They want music for certain things.
And you have a couple singers you could use if you needed to?
I have a couple people I can call, yeah. I have Chuck, he sings, my bass player, the male vocal stuff. And I know a couple of female vocalists, and they take some urging, but if it's a paying gig, they'll be there, you know.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and you pay everybody equally. Always pay people the night of the gig in cash.
Before you play or after?
No, after. When the gig's over.
I try to always get my money as the DJ before I hit that first note because afterwards I have so much trouble finding out who's in charge here, who am I supposed to get paid from. So I always insist, and I don't take checks unless it's like a business check or I know them or something.
Yeah. Well, you have to, if you're the person that deals with that end of it, you have to formulate your own routine for how you're going to do that.
If you could build the perfect band, I don't mean give me people's names, but just give me like a sax player, a drum. Like tell me your perfect ensemble.
Sax, trumpet, trombone, keyboards, guitar, bass, drums, male vocal, female vocal, and maybe even you could even add a fiddle, pedal steel, vibes.
Have you ever
more horns?
Have you ever been played a gig or been in a band with all those ideas? Yeah. And were they particularly enjoyable? And were you guys really good? Or?
Oh yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, we played this wedding in Williamsburg at I think it was the Governor's Land Country Club.
Was the governor there?
No.
Oh, okay.
That's just what the place
is
called, Governor's Landing or whatever.
Yeah.
It was a wedding, and it was a big band. We had like 15, 16...
Singer, too?
People. Yep.
Yeah.
Everybody. And it was real good. The person, the lady, the bride's mother who hired me, I forget how much we made. It was a lot of money.
Yeah.
She gave us like a $2,500 tip.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you split that evenly too?
I think I split some of it.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I try and be fair in that sense. Susie says, well, you're the leader. You should keep a little bit more. You should get a double. Like if everybody's getting 100, you should get 200. Or I mean, you're the guy who got the gig. You're the guy whose name is on the sign or whatever. You're the one who's going to...
And what are your thoughts on that?
I understand her reasoning, and I'm actually torn. You know, I can see where, I could justify keeping a little bit extra money, but I
think each one of these people in the band play an equally important role.
Oh, yeah. And as my years as a sideman...
Right.
You know... If the band is getting, everybody in the band is getting $200 and the leader is getting $2,000,
right?
I'm like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's sort of, as a sideman, that's like, why don't you, come on, drop a few crumbs, man.
Right.
So it's, you know, I try and be fair. I give everybody an equal cut.
Yeah.
As you know, that's just sort of been my policy. And
I think I remember one time you told me that you met somebody from Pat Benatar's band or Joan Jett's band or something. Do you remember?
I've met people from...
Tell us some of the people that you've met that people would know.
The Temptations.
Any stories attached to any of these meetings that would be interesting?
Not in and of themselves. Victor Wooten, he has a cousin who's passed away, Rudy Wooten, played saxophone. I jammed with him downtown Hampton. It used to be called Goodfellas. I don't know what it's called now, but
Yeah.
Man.
Goodfellas. I did karaoke there back in '09.
That whole family, musically talented.
The Wooten family?
Yeah.
Huh.
And Rudy was, it was kind of funny because it was a jam session kind of a thing, you know, and Rudy could play anything. And everybody that was there, so they would get up and jam, and most of the people that were there, they weren't at the level of musicianship where they could play changes, which just means songs with more than 3 chords. Okay, well, I can. And so when I got up there to sit in, and we played a few things that, and you know, Rudy, he immediately looked over at me like, he said, oh, you know. And so we kind of formed this little connection because he knew if he musically wanted to go somewhere, I could accompany that. So that was pretty cool. My musicianship is where it's at. I try not to have any illusions about that. So whenever I hire people, I'm always try and get people that are as good or better than me. You know, up here. Right. If I'm here, all my sidemen are somewhere up here, and I love it that way. Now, I'm no slouch. I mean, I can
if
play
there are
the guitar.
People you've never played with before, how do you know their abilities? Do you do a little research on them, or
well, it depends on who recommends them.
Okay.
Yeah,
Russell will always steer you in the right direction, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you have to be truthful.
I think you've told me about some guys you've played with before that really weren't very good, like in your little 3 or 4 piece ensemble.
Yeah.
You'll never call again, probably.
No.
Yeah.
You get your first call, second call, never call.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean.
Now, when you practice now, you still practice regularly, right? Like, what? How many? 2-3 times a week, or?
Yeah, as the mood hits, you know.
And the reason, well, what you're getting out of the practice is just to kind of stay fresh, to kind of know what you're doing, or are you ever working on learning a little bit more, developing further?
Always. But it's for the dexterity. To be able to.
Because you can lose that, right? You can lose the dexterity.
Very, very perishable skill. You
can have it in your head, but lose it in your muscles and fingers.
Yeah, you have to. You have to
That's
keep at it. Yeah. It'll go away if you don't keep up with it. You know, even simple stuff that you already know how to do. Your mind can understand it perfectly, but if you're not engaging the body, you know, it'll leave you.
It's not like riding a bike.
Not really. Not really. No, it's something you have to keep. It's a hands-on type thing, which I'm very big about. Live music, live musicians, live music. I don't, and I guess in that sense, you could say I'm a purist. I want to. I think it provides a level of entertainment and engagement and energy that canned music lacks. I you know, and not putting down canned music. You know, I like to listen to stuff that's already recorded as much as the next person. But if I'm going to go out and provide some of this, you know, here's how I want to do it. If you hire me, this is what you get. You're going to get the real deal. You're going to get a bass player that knows how to play the bass, a drummer that knows how to play the drums, and et cetera, et cetera. Everybody's going to be able to be a true professional in that sense, you know. And it's very, I think it's elevating for the whole audience, as well as the band members. You know, the band, we sometimes, if the audience isn't paying attention to you that much, and you're doing a good job, at least you're getting that with your fellow bandmates, you know.
Right.
And so, and if it's contagious to where everybody says, oh, these guys are good, you know, and they start listening to you, that just helps bring everybody up to, you know. Music, I think, has the ability touch people on a very deep level. You could call it spiritual or metaphysical or whatever, but it tickles something inside that doesn't need words. It transcends all the bullshit. You know, you don't have to agree politically on anything, or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
believe
absolutely.
that the earth is round or flat.
Yep.
It's all all that goes out the window. It's just, wow, it makes you feel good. You know, it's pretty. It's soothing. It's you know what I mean?
It goes down to the core of whatever it is that makes us human. You know, our uniqueness as human beings, our ability to be self-aware and know things in life. You know, it's unique to humans. Animals can't appreciate music. They say plants can, but I don't know if that's true or not.
What is sound? It's vibrations, okay? Whether it's voice or musical instrument, it's frequencies. Vibrations in the air, hits the air molecules, they travel, they bounce off your eardrum. Scam. And so it's vibrations, okay? It's energy, vibrations. Now, what are people made out of? We're made out of atoms, okay? Now, at the atomic level, what is an atom? You have a nucleus, you have electrons, okay, that are constantly vibrating. They're in motion.
On their own.
Yeah. I mean, it's
just us existing.
I mean, and it's hard to imagine because it's so microscopic.
Right.
But at that level, we're all just this vibration of energy, our existence itself. You know, we're all collected into this lump of mass of flesh and stuff. But it's all atoms, and whether we live for 90 or 100 years or whatever, and then we go away, the whole time you're here, that energy packet is going through time. And so you interact with things around you. Everything is that. The walls, trees, water, everything is made of atoms that are vibration, you know. And so music is just kind of to me, that just makes it even more understandable. I guess why it's so appealing, why it's so such an important part of people's lives.
There are some songs that, even if I hear them for the very first time, they immediately trigger some. I immediately like it. It's like a perfect example is "Don't Know Why" by Norah Jones.
Yeah.
That song is just an example of something. The first time I heard it, I liked it. It just triggered something in me. It's like, wow, I just sat and I wanted to hear the whole song. And for me, music is a good memory trigger, especially being a DJ and playing songs that people know, people specifically request, and they request them because it brings them to a place or a time or just, you know, it gets them in a mood, and I can completely relate and understand to that. That's why I listen to a lot of movie soundtracks and stuff, or scores, John Williams and things like that, because it just, I don't know, it's actual, like a physical sensation you can feel in your body and in your head. It releases the dopamines, and it just, memory is a big part of, you know, I can remember where I was when I heard a certain song, or if it's a song that's just really good, like I'm a fan of this band, Greta Van Fleet, and their music's, a lot of people say it's similar to Led Zeppelin, but on not their album that just came out, but the one that came out like a year and a half ago, the last song of the entire album is just, they just jam on it, and you can just close your eyes, put on some headphones, sit in a dark room, or put on some sort of crazy lights or black posters or whatever, you know, and it just transforms you. It just elevates you, and you forget about everything else in your life.
Yeah.
The problems you have or any stresses. Or
what else can do that, you know?
Yeah, right.
You haven't taken a pill or any drugs.
Right.
You know, it's just a sensation that takes you to this whole new dimension.
Like,
you know?
when I come and listen to you, sometimes when you guys really get into a song and everybody's just doing their own thing, if I'm not there for a purpose, if I don't need to record you and I can actually just sit and listen, your music does that also. It just, it's just like you forget, this song, they've been playing this song for 18 minutes. You forget about this. It's like when you're watching a really good movie. Oh, this movie's going on the 3-hour mark now, and you don't want it to end,
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that happens to everybody, even musicians, it's probably especially musicians. And we're probably more critical of ourselves.
Sure. Oh, sure.
Because
sure.
if we want to recreate that for somebody in the audience, then let's have our stuff right and tight.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Let's not get up there and be drunk or goofing around.
Most people are their own worst critics.
Well, and you, in some instances, you should be.
Yes, exactly. Because Jen and I were watching some of the worst of American Idol auditions last night on YouTube, and these people are just so not self-aware, or they there was this beautiful blonde woman that went up, and she was stunning. And
what did she do? Sing? Or?
She sang. She sang. This was not America's Got Talent. It's just American Idol, just singers. And she sang, but she was all over the place. And you could tell.
Was she in key and all this, or?
She was a little. You could tell though she needed to be harnessed. She needed to be trained. But they were giving her critique, and she wasn't having it. Some people have told me my whole life that I was a good singer. Well, they're your friends, they're your family. You're beautiful, so of course, And it's just, there's so many people that are just not, I don't understand. But even myself, I look at myself, I don't see myself the way others see me. I try to, what I think others are perceiving of me, but.
Well, no, that's particularly true with music.
Yeah.
Because it's in the moment, and you learn that early on if you're going to be a musician, if you're going to play with other people, in front of other people, and you're not at the level yet where you can fit in, where you understand it ain't just about you, okay, they will let you know. The other musicians will let you know in no uncertain terms.
Right.
They'll say, get the hell off the stage, man. You come back when you learn how to play that damn thing. But you ain't gonna sit up here now.
Right. Have you ever had that happen?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Like with your band?
With me. When I was learning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when I was learning. And it was exactly what I needed to hear at that time because I couldn't.
Were you resentful and angry at the time, or did you immediately be like, "Oh, wow"?
No, I because I understood. I'm going to do this. I'm going to eventually learn how to do this and conquer it. Right. Overcome whatever I need to overcome to be able to do it because I want it that much.
Right.
So every time you get constructive criticism, I would take it and look at it like. Sort of be thankful for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. In a moment,
that's a very mature attitude to have.
In a moment, it's awkward maybe, and you have to kind of trail off, and go away.
Right.
But then you know what you need to work on, and it's, you know what I'm saying? It's, and they're really doing you a favor by, because what's the name of that? Album, Blues and the Abstract Truth. It's just honesty. It's truth.
Who does this album?
Is that Oliver Nelson?
Okay.
Yeah, Stolen Moments. Yeah, it's a great album. Great album. But you have to have that. That's what's necessary for Broadway, for live performances of any kind. You have to have overcome your own ego to realize, no, I'm not perfect. There are some things I can't do. There's some things I need to work on. Get over myself and do it. Put in the time and effort to do what you have to do.
And then on the flip side of that coin, there are some people who are too critical of themselves, and they're actually like amazing, and they don't ever see that in themselves. Like just as I'm not saying I'm amazing, but I work at a club where there's like two different clubs adjoined, and I play music, and sometimes I really question my choices. Am I reading this crowd right? Am I playing the right kind of music? And then I have people come up to me throughout the night and they're like, man, you are playing the best music. Like, where did you get this playlist? And I'm like, I make it up. I don't even know what song I'm going to play next. I read the room, and I have thankfully, I have this huge Rolodex in my head of songs, of thousands of songs. Plus, I create playlists that I can sort of refer to.
I know what the phenomenon you're talking about. I learned a very good lesson from a bass player I knew a while back, Sam Cameron. He was that.
I remember him.
Yeah, he's the guy who played on the first song I wrote, D, the vocal version.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can be in a band and you can play a song, and everybody in the band will know, oh man, that sucked. We really screwed that up. Yet the people out there don't really know. They're coming up saying, man, you guys are great.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to say to that person, well, you don't know what you're talking about. Sam, here's what you do. Here's how you respond. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate you took the effort to come up here and tell me that. That means so much to me. And really, your self-critique, you're doubting yourself. Am I doing a good job and everything? And even if you think you're not, and somebody comes up and says, "Oh, that was the best song. Where did you get this?" Just be gracious.
Right.
Thank you so much.
I remember one time I was doing a voiceover session with somebody, and usually you have the client on the phone that's just listening in to the whole voiceover section. And I'd mentioned this guy Peter Pope earlier, and he was the sound engineer. He was the one like, okay, let's go ahead and do another take of it. And I learned this lesson from him, and I never forgot it. I read a script, and when they played it back to see if the client liked it, they did. They thought it was fine. But myself, I heard like a little clicking or a little nasal popping or something that was so incredibly subtle that I may have been the only one. That Peter may have noticed it, but he was like, he told me later, he's like, you're good. The client is good. I don't want to be in here for 2 hours recording this script,
Yeah,
And I was like, oh, it's like it dawned on me. I was like, maybe I should just shut up. I'm hearing this, but the client isn't. The client loves it. And Peter's like, Chris, shut up. We don't need to redo it, I only needed to learn that lesson once, and now I'm, I was
just let it go.
Yeah.
There's a funny story. There's a guitar player that used to work with Miles Davis. He was working with Miles, and they went into the studio to do some recording. Okay, so they went in and they did their thing, and then he said, like, a day or two later, he was listening to it, and he thought, oh man, I could have done so much better,
Yeah.
So next time he saw Miles, he's like, Miles, look, let's go back in and let me redo this track and all this kind of stuff. And Miles was like, no, man, it's okay. It's okay. Don't worry about it. You did,
Yeah.
And he said, no, really, I know I can do better. And Miles was like, he says, oh man, you got to know when to leave the party.
You sounded like him a little bit just now. Yeah.
I
could totally picture him saying that.
The same idea that you're talking about. Or we were talking about earlier, you mentioned something. It's leaving me now. No. But anyway, no, it's I actually, when you were much younger, I was into that. I was into some heavy learning back then. That's when I was getting into some heavy, like Moment's Notice and things like that. Stuff that it's beyond the beginner level.
Right.
Doesn't matter your instrument. If you're looking at that song, it's beyond the beginner level. Okay, and so I was like trying to smooth that out and make it all gel correctly and everything. But there was a lot. That was a very fast pace part of my life, you know. And then here you were in tow, dragging you along, exposing you to all this junk that I was going through at the same time. Now I'll think back and say, oh man, you know, I was such a horrible father. Chris was there. He was a prisoner. There's no, whether it was good or bad, there was no way you were there.
I mean, it wasn't always exciting. I remember you practicing and me watching you. I got bored with it just because I was young. I mean, it wasn't that I was like, God, he's awful or anything. It was just tedious, monotonous, but. Yeah, no, believe me, it benefited me later in the long run. It's the same. Me and Jen talk about the TV shows we watched growing up. I remember watching the Three Stooges with you and the old Tarzan episodes and Kung Fu Theater.
Yeah, yeah.
And on Saturday night, we'd watch Hee Haw. You know, that gave me a huge appreciation for country music.
That
Roy
was
Clark
a really good show.
And then we watched Dukes of Hazzard and. There's so many fun shows we watched on Sundays because I used to spend my weekends with you.
We used to listen to some radio shows too.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Yep.
You mentioned hearing a song that you described an album you heard it on, the last song or something.
Yes.
There's a composer. You know who Hans Zimmer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. He gets it.
Yeah.
He did the music for Interstellar.
Yes.
For the Dream Inception.
Mm-hmm.
And a few other very
Inception, was that the Leonardo movie? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and that's so it's
powerful music. Powerful. Those film scores are just transformative. They're amazing.
One thing I've noticed too about some musicians is they never go to the movies.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know. And I think they rob themselves of. I mean, they'll eventually hear, like a big movie hit. They'll eventually get around to them where this song is from that movie. Oh, okay. But by not going to, I'm not saying go to every movie, just certain movies. If you don't go to any movies, then I think you're robbing yourself of some of that's in those movies, some of the movie scores and things like that. It's great stuff, you know.
I've seen some of these orchestras. They're sitting around and they have the movie on a huge screen, and they're actually the composer's like, okay, you're going to bring it down now. You know, it's like it's a chase scene, but now we need tension because he's hiding behind.
It's very directly linked
to watch them.
Linked to the action, that visual.
Yeah,
and then the audio. It's got to be married. You know,
absolutely. All right, well, we're going to wrap up the interview. Will you be able to perform a song for us? If we hook things up, I'm going to move the camera around. Can you just do like one song? I don't know if you've had time to think about if you could only do one song, what would it be? But would you be able to do?
I don't know if I can play a particular song. I can fart around on the guitar a little bit.
Sure, that's fine. Just show us your chops.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and pause this, and we'll set all that up, and we'll be right back, okay? Again, I want to thank everyone for joining us here at the Clover Street Podcast. The guest, my father, Nick Kepics. I'm Chris Kepics, and follow us on social media. We're out there at the Clover Street Podcast, and we'll be right back with jazz guitarist extraordinaire, Nick Kepics, and he's going to just fool around and show us his chops.
Should I put the headphones on?
Yeah, you're good. Yeah. Can you reach them?
Yeah. There's a lot of glare.
It's fine. You don't worry about the video.
Actually, these stickers are actually confusing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm trying to block them out.
It's a waltz in 3, 2, 3. Is that enough? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. It's a nice little amp.
All right, once again, thank you, everybody. That was Nick Kepics playing some guitar for you and hanging out with us here at the Clover Street Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, and be sure to tune in next time